supplies for Hungary waited on the Austro-Hungarian frontier for Soviet permission to pass through. Eventually it was granted, and the belated errand of mercy was underway. Besides vital medical supplies, contributions include food and clothing for those who face terrible privations from cold and hunger. Hungary's SOS has been answered with overwhelming generosity by millions of sympathizers throughout the free world.
The Red Cross are doing a fine job, aren't they?
Yes. But there's a lot of other work that they do.
A great deal of the work of the British Red Cross Society is concerned with relief. Relief to the nation, the community, and the individual. When the refugees from Hungary were crossing the border in great numbers, the Society was at once mobilized to help. At the London headquarters, arrangements were made to move more than 11,000 refugees to Britain in the following month alone. Independent airline charter companies offered assistance, and with the cooperation of the Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation, a plan was roughed out in 48 hours. With each party came a Red Cross escort, skilled in quietening the frightened women and children and the badly shocked men. Red Cross teams were organized to meet all the parties, with doctors, ambulances, and even midwives in attendance where necessary. Paperwork was reduced to a minimum. Britain made no selection of the refugees she took. The only qualification was to be a refugee. The army helped by providing first-line camps, such as this near Dover, to which came 3,000 Hungarians. It was necessary to find English-speaking leaders to help the voluntary societies acting as hosts to the travelers, many of whom were scarcely old enough to know what was happening. After a short while, each family was interviewed privately by officials so that future plans could be discussed. When agreement was reached, the head of the family signed the papers. Then came the day of departure. All gathered in the gymnasium where the families were checked out, one by one. Little Pater Hoffmann was not at all sure of the future. But his sister Susanna was not afraid. German was often found to be a good intermediate language when trying to translate difficult Hungarian, but there was no need to explain the white paper bags that held sandwiches for the next meal. Each refugee carried all he now possessed in the bags or cases in his hands. British Railways made available many special trains. This was one to go to Scotland with 200 refugees aboard. A brief platform conference was held to coordinate the arrangements. Thick, hot soup was provided as usual by the Red Cross. Already the Hungarians had traveled thousands of miles, but this journey was different, for at the end of it were promised accommodation, jobs, and something approaching normal life. London represented hope, and with the aid of the Red Cross, many who had come so far were to find a new life. George Free now works with the Fleet Street News Agency. He and many others have been saved from despair by the work of such as the British Red Cross. This station is manned by a crew of 2. The radio operator is the holder of the license for his equipment, and he is assisted by a logger who keeps a record of all the calls. The message having been handed over, the operator calls up the RAIN member nearest the point to which he wishes to transmit the urgent message. These stations are alerted by the police and other authorities and are operating within a very short time after the alert on a national basis. At the receiving station, a listening watch means that there is no delay in passing on the important and urgent message. By the next morning, at first light, teams have been brought close to the scene of the floods, and they are ready for incidents such as this. Any signal of distress must be investigated, so the Red Cross first aider and a RAIN operator carrying a walkie-talkie tramp across the shallow floods. They have been up all night and are tired. At the water's edge, they are met by the housewife who signaled to them and are led to the house. She is most anxious about her daughter, who was taken ill during the night. Since the telephone lines were down, she had not been able to contact the doctor. Her husband was away and she could not leave the child. This is an urgent hospital case. Speed is vital, so the walkie-talkie is used to speak to the car driver. In the back of the car is a more powerful instrument in contact with the base station. After checking his position on the map, the driver calls base. Here a message can be taken for passing to the local hospital, and an ambulance can be sent to fetch the sick girl. It is for the saving of life and relief of distress that this network was formed. Relief for the community. Individual relief takes many forms. For example, there is the Meals on Wheels service for sick and aged people unable to fend for themselves. A hot meal brought in thermos containers several times a week is a great help to such as Mrs. Clark, and she looks forward to the visit of the local Red Cross worker as a chance to gossip and hear the news as well. For the disabled, there are clubs where they find new friends, forget their loneliness, and try their hands at making things, thereby helping themselves to conquer their disability. From little bits of kindness, small pieces of generosity, and odd moments of spare time,